Welcome back to another Doctor Who product review. Today we're going to be taking a look at yet another release from the Doctor Who Robert Harrop line of collectibles. This time round I'm going to be taking a look at the Solonian Mutant from the third Doctor story, The Mutants. There is limited edition to 200 units and is currently available to order via the Robert Harrop official website. Now the recommended retail for this product is £65, and if you like what you see in this review, I certainly recommend purchasing this product as soon as possible, because the thing with the Robert Harrop line is, due to their rather strict run of units, once they are sold out for good, and normally that does tend to happen within the first 1 or 2 months of release, depending on the product's popularity. So this series is a rather niche audience collectible, however one of which that is highly detailed and really worth adding to your collection if you get the opportunity. Now, of course, previously I have already reviewed the Clockwork Soldier as seen in the second Doctor story, The Mind Robber, and that was in fact the first figurine to feature the brand new design of packaging. This is in fact the second version and the first figure that has been seen in 2019, so we do have a few figurines coming on the way throughout this year, and this is in fact one of the first releases. So we have, as per usual, the brand new box, which has the Doctor Who 13th Doctor logo there at the very top in the white typeface, along with the BBC logo. In the very middle of the box we do get a silver sticker that has all of the details for this release, stating that this is the 30th figure in the Doctor Who line and is the Solonian Mutant from the third Doctor era 1970 to 1974. And at the very bottom we get limited edition hand-painted figurine along with the Robert Harrop Doctor Who Figures logo. Rotating the box around, we have this rather nice contrast to the side of the box, where we have a really nice graphic of the TARDIS exterior along with the Please Public Call box signage and the pull to open window. As per usual, on the lid of the box we do get a further sticker that states that this is the Solonian Mutant, along with the unique identification number being 101 out of 200 limited edition units. And of course, at the very back of the box we get the Doctor Who logo repeated once again, along with some company information, and overall the actual material of the box is of course a sturdy corrugated cardboard in order to protect the figurine statue on the inside of the box. Once again, much like all the other releases in the Robert Harrop series of Doctor Who statues, we do have a certificate of authenticity, which has once again seen a little bit of an upgrade in order to be consistent with the rest of the box design with the new Doctor Who logo, the unique identification number, once again an image of the mutant as seen within the actual story, and just to state that this is certified by Robert Harrop. Flipping around the certificate of authenticity, on the very back we once again get the title of the product itself, along with a bit of information about the story and some further information about Robert Harrop as a company. So here we have the Mutant, or even the Mutt for short, out of the box. Now I think that this is a good time to state that I haven't in fact seen the Mutants as a third Doctor story. I've never watched it, it's not particularly been a story that has interested me too much, along with quite a few episodes in the third Doctor era in fact. However, the good thing about the Robert Harrop line is you don't particularly need to have too much context about the actual monster in order to really review it, because at the end of the day, this just looks like another cool Doctor Who monster. It is a very intriguing and interesting design, and something of which that does very much look like a swamp zombie creature almost that has mutated over time. Now this figure is in fact a little bit smaller than some of the other figures in the series. That is simply because he is crouched over a little bit, his posture is a little bit bent in its back, and yeah, it is a bit slouched over. However, the overall body itself is in fact a little bit more bulky compared to that of your normal releases, especially if I give the figure a bit of a rotation. As you can see, we have this big massive back section that isn't normally there on other releases in the series. So the actual design itself, even if you haven't seen the story, is something that I imagine would look really cool on your shelf, simply because it does stand out as being a rather creepy and unusual looking monster. So firstly, taking a look at the head, because this is one of the most striking parts of this figure, simply because of those big, massive, bulging eyes. As you can see, they've been given this really nice orange paint app that certainly makes them stand out compared to that of the rest of the body being a rather murky and dark grey. The paint apps of the orange on this have been really nicely applied to the figure itself, and overall do look really sharp. And I do love the additions of the glossy black around the sides, as well as the white white iris, and of course that is the same for the opposite side as well. I love the way that these have been sculpted to actually almost be popping out of the eye sockets on the head, and the overall shape of the actual head itself does look rather skeletal in its design. As you can see, we almost have cheekbones around here, and then we come to this ridge there at the very top where we have almost this spinal section with some really lovely paint apps in there of the different sort of blocks on the head coming out, once again almost looking like a bone structure. Of course, at the very front we do also get the mouth that has been really nicely sculpted, and I love the fact that the actual jaw section is a separate piece, and the mouth does in fact go in a little bit. There is a bit of a gap there which you can just look up a bit in the light, and this has been nicely painted a black colour in order to make it look rather dark and like it's got a lot of depth, which is very cool. And then of course you do also have at the very bottom the tendrils, or whatever you want to call them, these rather unusual claw-like designs, almost a bit like a crab, which I do believe have in fact been recreated by using some pewter to make them actually sharp and rather sturdy in their design. So these have been once again sculpted rather nicely to look like mandibles with a few sections on there making it look like claws, very sharp indeed, which looks very cool and certainly does stand out. And then of course around the rest of the head this has also been rather nicely detailed. We have once again another version of this cheekbone almost section with a few cracks and things down the side in order to get the different sections of the face rather nicely standing out. So I think that for paint apps and sculpt, this figure is in fact really impressive. So now moving lower down the statue to take a look at the rest of the body, we have the main chest section. Now from this point onwards, the rest of the actual figure is rather similar in its sculpt, and the paint apps applied over the top of this are also rather similar, of course because he doesn't particularly have a costume. This is almost one piece of armour, or his actual body in the way that he is mutated over time. And I think that generally it does look very much like an armadillo, or kind of like a fossilised creature. I think that it does look very strong and sturdy, and I think that the way that we have all these different ridges around the sides, as you can see at the top there, we have almost this shoulder pad section that is really wide in its design and certainly does stick out, and we do also have a few sculpts in this as well of cracks going down the side, as well as a little bit of weathering around the edges, which has been really nicely supported by those paint apps on the top being a rather light colour, which is a really nice contrast compared to the dark underneath. It makes them stand out quite a lot. And then of course in the very middle we do also get this further armoured section. We have almost this opposite spine piece there going down the middle of the chest, as well as a few cracks and things and curls coming around the side to make it almost look like creasing in the body. Most likely in the actual episode this would have been creasing within the actual human underneath who was playing the actual creature. Of course around the very back we do get a further design of once again that more armoured plating that does sort of make it look a bit like an armadillo. So we have a few different sections here of different panels, as well as this really lovely almost dotted section with a few orbs coming down the side, which once again really nicely connects to the top of the head, as well as that spine section really nicely concave there in the very middle. The actual arms themselves once again actually follow a rather similar design, including once again lots of different panels and different ridges, which have been really nicely brought out by those different paint apps with a few lighter ones coming down the side, and also to really emphasise those different panels and details, do in fact have a few darker paint apps that have been put into the crevices to really make those details stand out a little bit more. And the whole figure has in fact been given a rather unusual looking grey wash that does in fact make the figure once again look like that it is made of stone, almost like that this is a moss coming up the side. I suppose as these are mutants within the actual story, perhaps this could be some toxic waste or something like that, I don't really know, but as you can see there is a little bit more of this going down to the very bottom of the figure where we have the crotch section there with a few more further pieces, along with on the legs where we have lots more creases once again. Taking a closer look at the arm sections, now I really do like these parts of the figure simply because of the way that it has actually been sculpted. As you can see it's been raised up to make it look like that he is stretching out, but the actual arms themselves are really cool. Once again I do believe that these have been made of a pewter to make them rather strong, so there isn't as much risk of these snapping as compared to the rest of the body being made of of that resin, so it's nice to have a secure material being used in there, and it's good to actually see the way that they've blended that into the rest of the sculpt. Once again, really nicely painted, lots of green around the sides, and I love that claw. Once again, makes it look like he's reaching out, and I love the fact that the claw at the opposite side is almost a little bit more relaxed. As you can see, it is a very similar design, however, this time round it is just sculpted down side his waist, as opposed to reaching out like the other hand. The actual legs themselves are very unusual once again in their design. It actually reminds me a little bit of a almost fat sea devil crossbred with an ice warrior. We almost have the armour plating of an ice warrior, and then almost the panel design of the sea devil, making it look like a normal humanoid leg section, however a bit more thicker skinned over the sides. As you can see, we have lots of different textures. Even if you run your finger along this, there's lots of like ripples, making it look very natural almost, but rather alien at the same time. And then of course, tilting the figure around to the back, we get this further beetle design of this sort of back section, which is very unique for this release. Once again, I've never really seen a figure like this other than, say, the Vespa form. Well, we have a few different sections and panels coming around the sides, really nicely connected to the legs. It does actually look like a section within the body itself, like it's almost grew down. And once again, I love the paint apps on this, really nicely sculpted. I like the fact that we have a gap between the legs as well as the actual beetle back section, something of which that the figures or even the figurine collection would no doubt probably fill that in completely with just the rest of the resin, which may make the figure look a little bit like one big block of material as opposed to actually a real alien-like creature. So I do quite like that gap in there. Now the feet are in fact incredibly odd. These sort of remind me a little bit of a can opener or a bottle opener. As you can see, we have this circular claw section there that has really nicely blended into the actual base, and the same does apply for the back of the beetle sort of back section as well. It is in fact a rather streamlined piece. It is very flat in its design, no doubt a little bit flatter than what it would have actually been within the story itself, but this is still rather cool. And then of course the whole figure itself does finish off on this really nice green base. Once again, has been made to almost look like a toxic green, where we have lots of different shades of green in there, along with a few ripples and darker sections to probably represent the actual ground from almost the cave environment that they are within throughout the actual story itself. And then of course, as per usual, much like the majority of Robert Harrop figures, at the very bottom of the base we do get the rather nicely white painted trim. At the very bottom of the base we do also have the felt section to ensure that the actual base doesn't slide around when on a shelf, and then we do also have the sticker, which once again repeats all the details about the figure itself, as well as the unique identification number. And finally, for detail, just to emphasise how unusual the actual body shape and type is, just giving the figure a little bit of a rotation. As you can see there, it is rather deformed, and certainly nothing like the previous review of the Clockwork robot that is very static in its design and very humanoid. This is far from that. It is very beetleish and animal-like. So it does look very cool, and I really do love the way that it is posed. It does have a lot of character, and it does make it look like a swamp creature. And just in case, if you were curious, if you are a collector of the Classic Series 5.5 action figures, considering that we didn't get a Mutt action figure back in the day, I think that it is very obvious that the Mutt is a completely different scale to that of the 5.5 Third Doctor. I think that the Robert Harrop series is 1/12 scale, if I remember rightly, but overall, if you really like the Mutts and want one to just display next to your Third Doctor action figure, even if it is a little bit larger in its scale, but hey, who cares? It still looks cool anyway. And of course, that aside, if you do want an in-scale Third Doctor to display next to your Mutt, of course there is in fact a Robert Harrop Third Doctor, which I do believe is still available to buy on the website, and it is in fact in a very similar costume to this one displayed beside the mutant figure. So overall, for the Doctor Who Robert Harrop limited edition hand-painted figurine of the Solonian Mutant, also known as Mutt, from the Third Doctor story The Mutants, I think that this is once again a really welcome addition to the Robert Harrop series of Doctor Who collectibles. I think that if you are a regular collector of this series, then this is one that I certainly recommend picking up, simply because of the way that it has been designed. I think that the actual sculpt is stunning, and the paint application on top of this figure is absolutely sublime. I love the textures, I love that rather nice wash of green that is over the top, and also those occasional grey highlights here and there. It really nicely creates this really interesting texture, really making this figure look incredibly eye-catching. Of course, if you are a fan of the Third Doctor era, or even the Mutants as an actual story as a whole, then this is a perfect figure to add to your collection, simply because of the fact that it is one of the only mutants to ever be released, I think, in merchandise form, and of course the additional benefit of this figure being incredibly highly detailed, and the fact that it is a part of the Robert Harrop series, meaning that you are guaranteed quality. Of course, as I stated at the start of this review, the recommended retail is £65, so it is a much more niche, higher market product, but you are paying for value at the end of the day. And if you like what you see in this review, then I certainly recommend picking up the actual product very soon, considering that this line does normally go out of stock within the first month or two of release, maybe 3 at a push if the figure is actually popular, which for contextual reasons, I think that every figure that I have in fact reviewed that has been released over the past year or so has in fact sold out. So buy now to avoid disappointment. Thank you very much for watching this review. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have any questions about the Solonian Mutant figurine statue, then please do leave them in the description below, and I will reply to them at some point in the near future. And do stay tuned for more Doctor Who content, as per usual, every single week from lots of different areas of Doctor Who's history, including Big Finish, product reviews, episode reviews, and much, much more. So I shall see you all next time. Bye for now.